Hello, everyone. Happy Thursday. Thank you so much for joining us for this America Outdoors webinar today. This is Hillary Wicks here with America Outdoors. In case you're new to these webinars, this is a new member benefit in 2019. This is the 6th webinar we've done this year for our spring series. And we do have one more left, so if it's not already on your calendar, make sure that you have it saved for Wednesday, June 5th. We're going to be doing our final webinar with 829 Studios, the final for our spring, which is all about how to measure your ROI and choose which marketing strategies you want to do for your business, where you put your money. So we will be starting the webinars also in the fall again, so you can just have that in mind that you'll be looking out for a postcard. And also, I just wanted to make sure everybody kind of understands that this is a really good way to get education year-round, but we are also going to be expanding upon some of these concepts at the conference that we have this year in Salt Lake City, which is the week of December 9th. So make sure that's also marked on your calendar. All right, so today's webinar is all about email and nurturing leads. We have Caitlin. She's the Director of Inbound Marketing at 829, and she's an expert in this stuff. So you're going to be in really good hands for this webinar. As she's going, go ahead and write in your questions. I'm going to be monitoring those, and we will plan to answer them at the end, but you can write them in whenever you're ready. So you don't have to hold the questions to the end. If you are having any trouble hearing or anything like that, also let me know so that we can handle it for you. And I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Caitlin and take it away.
Hey everyone, thanks so much. I'm Caitlin Marola. As was just mentioned, I work at 829 Studios as the Director of Inbound Marketing. So everything that is related to and kind of falls under the umbrella of lead generation and lead nurturing, primarily through automated email campaigns. So I'm just going to walk you through this set of slides that I've produced for today's webinar. First, I'm going to kind of just walk you guys through some definitions, some concepts, some common sort of pillars of an effective automated email strategy. And then I'm going to kind of dig in and show you guys some of the more effective tactics that are a part of an effective email program. Then I will touch on some email best practices, just in case, you guys are sending emails even today, and you want to infuse some newer best practices that are aligned to sort of 2018, 2019 trends. We'll go over some of those things, and then we'll talk a little bit at the end about how to measure success of an email campaign and what we look at on my team. So to start off, I like to throw this up just because this is a super common conversation that I have with clients, especially at the very, very beginning. Learning about their business, learning about how they leverage email marketing currently. And a lot of our clients say, we use email marketing and we send a newsletter, and then I, of course, have some follow-up questions about how that's working for them. Is it effective? Does the newsletter help turn leads into customers? And most every client that we start with is, that's a dark area. They're not completely sure. They have no idea if the newsletter is even working, if it's helping in any way. They kind of know that it's giving them exposure to a certain list of people, but they can't really measure the success. They're not really sure if that effort is really working for them. So what we do then, my team and myself, we take a look at our client. We say, okay, what are your business goals? What are your objectives? What are your priorities? For the next 3 months, 6 months, a year out, and who are you trying to ultimately target with a meaningful, thoughtful, branded campaign? And I'm going to talk a little bit more about sort of what a full email strategy includes, what that should look like. A lot of people kind of are doing part of it, or they're doing one type of email marketing, but there's a bunch of different kinds. And I just want to spend some time talking about that. So first and foremost, we have automated lead nurture email. I'm going to spend a lot of time today talking specifically about this tactic. But in terms of a full email program, you want to include behavioral triggered emails, and I'll define what those are, and then calendar-based timely emails as well. Calendar emails meaning those that are sent based on a certain day of the year, whether it's a holiday or it's a specific promotion you're running that's timely and relevant to only a certain time period. That's what I mean when I talk about calendar-based emails. So let's dig in a little bit. So what is a lead nurture email automation? Like, what is that? So an automated campaign is designed for the purpose of identifying, qualifying, and converting leads to customers. It's that sort of steady drumbeat of content, of value-driven messaging that you can then kind of sit back, rest assured that all of your new leads that are funneling into your system from your website, from social media, from events that you go to, they're all receiving that same foundational set of content from you when they are a new organic lead, just learning more about you. And we can set this up, we can have it kind of run automatically. That is the purpose of an automation. So these campaigns are comprised of strategically positioned email communications created with the intent, of course, to propel a lead from where they are currently in their purchase journey to ultimately becoming a customer and booking a trip with you. So I actually have an example here, just a snapshot of some of our emails that we've done for ORS. As you can see, and as you'll sort of see throughout this presentation, our emails follow a very standard layout, and that is all aligned to best practice. These are the most effectively designed emails based on our experience, based on what we've seen work in the past. So you'll kind of see how this is a pretty steady design throughout all of our campaigns across all of our clients. So what is a behavioral triggered email? So these emails are sort of that second pillar of your full email program. These emails are designed to meet your buyers where they are in real time to drive a micro conversion. So a behavioral email, it sort of puts the user first and puts the marketer second. So it's not the marketer saying, here are all the things that I want to say to a new lead. Let's automatically send this content to that lead. It's more based on the lead is raising their hand on your website and saying, hey, I want to learn more about X. And then the marketer can then take that behavior and foster content based on that. So actions that can sort of work as effective trigger points, meeting at a campfire or an event, somewhere where you're meeting prospects, a form submission on the website, obviously making a purchase on the website, viewing a specific web page, downloading a piece of gated content, reading a blog post. I have this example here that we've done for Micato Safaris. This email goes out directly after somebody requests a brochure on their website. And it's just a kind of a clever way to make sure that Micato is confirming that you've requested your brochure. We're going to be sending it to you. We're super excited. Learn more. So this is just a really effective email that we send for Micato, and it's based on the behavior that the lead has shown by requesting a brochure. What is a calendar-based email? So a calendar-based email is, of course, based on the calendar. So anything that's going on that's related to your business model, an event invitation, a registration deadline, a customer anniversary, a customer birthday, holidays, anything that's related to a specific day on the calendar or a specific week on the calendar, we want to make sure that our email program takes that into consideration and we're not forgetting those pivotal points in the year. I know that a lot of our business models, a lot of our clients have seasonal sort of ebbs and flows in their business, and we want to make sure that we're capitalizing on those really hot times of year with calendar-driven emails as well. So those are the three types of emails, but I want to get into the foundational sort of framework that 829 lives by and that we educate all of our clients on sort of in the beginning of our engagements. So then it can kind of set the stage for what we create with all of our clients. So this is our framework. This might be a little bit hard to read, but these slides will be available to everyone after this webinar is over. They'll be sent out to everyone as well as the recording of this webinar. So you'll be able to kind of dive in and read this in more detail. But this is our framework. This is sort of our Bible when it comes to how we structure our campaigns, what our ultimate goal is. So again, propelling a lead from being an unknown visitor on your website to then revealing themselves through a form submission and saying, hey, here's my name and email in exchange for content or in exchange for a brochure. Once we have their email address, we can start to kind of funnel them down through this purchase journey to becoming a decider and saying, I'm going to go on a trip and I'm going to go with vendor X. Becoming a customer, going on the trip, enjoying the trip, and then ultimately becoming a customer champion. We want to make sure that our automated email campaigns are supporting and encouraging a lead to go through this process. Every single time we send an email, there's a place for it in this journey. So next, again, super conceptual, but this is 829's content architecture. Again, this is sort of one of those reference documents that we are constantly going back to with every strategy we recommend, with every tactic we execute on. Ultimately, at the end of the day, at the top here, you'll see the customer journey. And we know that a customer journey isn't necessarily linear for every business, but we do know that there are common threads throughout every customer journey, and that's what this depicts. We want all of our sales and marketing internal processes as well as the content that we're externally disseminating to roll up into that customer journey at every stage. And you'll see here too as well that there are questions that a lead might have when they're on your website, certain pieces of information that we know a lead is going to ask at some point. Let's answer those within our campaign. Let's make that lead feel super secure, give them that peace of mind that we understand that they might have questions or concerns or, any sort of issue that they want to address regarding a trip. I mean, these trips are expensive. They're life-changing in a lot of ways. This isn't purchasing something through Amazon for $5. This is a big purchase, and we want to make sure that all of our leads, all of our prospects feel super excited and secure and have that peace of mind that we're providing them with the content that they need to purchase that trip and feel good about it. So let's kind of walk through then that journey and each of the different tactics that my team will execute on to achieve that strategy of propelling that lead down the journey. So let's look at the top of the funnel. So when a lead is just becoming a lead on the website, when they're a visitor, maybe they visited your website a couple of times, but they haven't submitted a form yet, they haven't downloaded any content quite yet. How do we get them to ultimately do that? How do we get them to take that action and, give us their name and email address? First and foremost, I like to set the framework here for this sort of top of funnel conversation, just making sure that I identify that buyer personas are super important, making sure that our website and every top of funnel asset we create is always keeping that buyer persona top of mind. We always want to be thinking about who we're targeting when we're thinking about lead generation. What do they care about? Who are they? Where are they in the purchase journey? So we might have completely different content that we're creating for a prospective traveler versus a past traveler versus a current traveler versus an alumni. All of that content could be completely different messaging, completely different offerings. And we want to make sure that we're really keeping that top of mind when we create our assets as part of our campaigns. So I just like to make sure that that's something that I address. But first and foremost, when it comes to lead generation, ensuring that all of your lead capture forms on your website is optimized is super important. We want to make sure that every field within every form, whether it's the brochure request or contact us, is optimized and that every field has a purpose. So what my team will do is we'll say, okay, we want to develop these automated email campaigns to go to all of these different personas and we want to tailor the content as much as we can based on our architecture, and we want to propel that person down the funnel. But how do we get that person to reveal themselves to begin with before we can even do any of that? Through thoughtfully designed lead capture forms is a great place to start. So we'll run like a little bit of an audit. We'll take a look at your current lead capture forms on your current website and say, hey, is this field really necessary? This might be causing some friction. Let's reduce the number of fields overall. Maybe this form that's super long could be split into 2 forms. Like, we'll just kind of like take a look at what you have, and see ways that we could optimize that for an increase in lead gen. That's our ultimate goal, of course. And this is just an example of one of our clients. We did their contact us form. They had a ton of fields, and we narrowed it down to really just the ones that were super important. And we did see that the submission rate increased after doing that. So just little changes like that can make a big difference. Pop-up forms. So another tactic that's under the umbrella of lead generation are these pop-up forms that we've employed. These have been really, really successful for a lot of our clients. And I have a couple of examples here to just show you what I mean by this pop-up. It just gives you as the business the ability to capture that person's information in real time as they're viewing content, whether it's on your blog or it's on your homepage or one of your, sub pages. This can pop up at the most opportune time on the right pages, to ultimately get that person to convert right there on the spot. We like to include very few fields, as few fields as possible, to reduce any sort of friction that might be present for somebody to click off of this. We ultimately want people to, of course, be filling this out. We like to keep them super sleek, not a whole lot of design elements to these. We want it to be something that's not too distracting, that leads somebody to bounce off the website entirely or click out of this. So that's why these sort of look this way. And these are really, really, really effective at just generating leads to then funnel into our campaigns for nurturing. So it's a really cool tactic. Event forms. This is another really cool way to capture people's information digitally. A lot of our clients, most all of our clients are going to events. They're meeting people in person, and they either have a booth or they have somewhere where they're meeting prospects, and they don't have any way to really capture that person's name and email address beyond a piece of paper and a pen. So what we'll do and what we're able to do is design these custom landing pages with first name, last name, email address, phone number, any field that the client wants to capture at these events that they're going to. And these funnel directly into our campaigns right there on the spot. So the person fills out their information, and then based on who they are, based on the information they fill out, they're going to get emails that are relevant to them because it's already automatically set up. So that's a really, really cool way to make that user experience just super flawless and really seamless. Custom landing pages is another really, really cool way to tailor your content to the buyer persona that you're targeting. Let's say your priority for the moment is getting those past travelers to book a second time. So you're trying to upsell, you're trying to get those travelers that had an awesome time with you to book again. You can tailor these web pages to them with specific messaging. So that messaging might be completely different than what you would want to say to a brand new organic lead who's never traveled with you before. And these landing pages, they don't live on your website. They're not in your navigation. They're pages that are specifically created for when somebody receives one of our automated emails. They can click through that email and show up on the page that's hyper relevant to them. So these are super cool. They're all completely dynamic. So the content changes based on who the person is, whether they're a lead or a past traveler or an alumni. So that's really cool. And then lastly, under lead generation, we have gated content. I can't stress enough how important gated content is. Having content that's available on your website for download is a great way to generate leads. Anything from a packing list to a map to a guide to an ebook. anything like that that you can create that just is a PDF, whether it's 2 pages, 3 pages, 20 pages, anything that's kind of beyond your website that you think is of value and is in a PDF format, you can place behind a form and ask for people's first name, last name, and email address in exchange for that. And it's a great way to generate leads and just get more names, more eyeballs viewing your content. So to kind of summarize lead generation and these best practice tactics, thoughtfully placed lead capture forms on your website, really important. Strategically positioned pop-up forms on your website, event forms for that real-time data collection, custom landing pages so you're able to present unique content, and thought leadership gated content. These are sort of those 5 micro pillars that fall under lead generation that we are always keeping top of mind with our clients when we engage with our clients, to think about new ways to generate new leads for them. So that's top of funnel. Let's move a little bit further down the funnel into that middle portion where somebody is a lead. Now we have them in our database. We have their name and email. They're in our system. We want to start nurturing them through an automated campaign. What does that look like? So this slide here is just kind of reiterating everything we've talked about up to this point. Things to include in an automated campaign, of course, sort of creating that brand boosting buzz, inspiring adventure and nature, any differentiators, things that make you super unique, anything that you feel that new, organic, fresh lead should know about you when they're in their evaluation process, we want to include in our campaign. So what does that look like? This is what that looks like. This is a super complex slide, but basically the depiction here is that we can create on the back end complex pathways for a lead to bring themselves through based on their behavior. So if they view a specific web page, if they click on an email, if they open an email, if they fill out a form, if they read a blog post, all of those activities we can track, and we are dictating which content comes next in their pathway based on that behavior. So everything they're doing as a lead, as a website visitor, is helping to inform what they're receiving from us. Everything's tailored. Everything is as personalized as we can make it based on whether they're a lead, whether they're an alumni, whether they're an active lead versus an inactive lead. We can change the messaging based on the fact that maybe they haven't opened an email in 30 days. We can change the messaging there. So we are always, as a team at A29, refining and tweaking these funnels, these pathways for our leads, ultimately to, of course, convert as many leads into customers, and also keeping that brand top of mind and presenting you in the best light possible with tailored content that's highly relevant. So that's sort of just what this is here. It's a depiction of what one of our campaigns looks like. Couple of snapshots here for you to just get a sense for what the emails within our campaigns look like. Ceaco Puzzles is a good example of how we have taken their product, which is in a lot of cases a $17 puzzle, which in a lot of cases doesn't necessarily mean that somebody needs to be nurtured for a while to make a decision like that, to just purchase the puzzle. But this campaign was super successful for the client. Talking about puzzles in different ways, how to glue a puzzle, best ways to do a puzzle, all the different kinds of puzzles they had. I mean, all of this content that goes beyond just buy now, buy now, buy now is really, really imperative. It really just sets you apart from your competitors. And we saw that with Ceaco. Micato Safaris, here's another snapshot. And again, these are just snapshots. These campaigns, I mean, Micato's campaigns have 20, 30 emails in them. A lead could be within a singular campaign for 6 months. So this is just a snapshot just to show you what the emails look like. Again, you'll see that standard format with the logo at the top, that beautiful hero image, the really compelling, relevant header text, the body copy, and then that one button at the bottom. So you'll see that throughout all of our work. This is the most effective way to structure an email. If you have too many calls to actions within your email, each new button decreases the effectiveness of that email. So you really want to make sure that you have that one primary button. It's really, really imperative, and I feel like I'm a broken record sometimes, but it's so important to remember that you have 3 to 5 seconds to get that person to click through to your website from an email. So if you have too many links, if you have too many stories, too many pictures, and it's super overwhelming and there's too much in there for somebody to possibly read in 3 seconds, you're going to lose them. They're going to delete, they're going to unsubscribe, or they're just going to ignore completely. So that's why you'll sort of see this standard layout. Obviously, we can't do this, but I wanted to include it here anyway because you'll have these slides after the webinar, and you could perhaps do this with your team internally. I think this is a really good exercise to do if you find that an automated email campaign is something you're interested in doing. You can totally start to build that framework on your own. And this is sort of how we do it with our clients. We help walk them through this. We sort of hold their hand each step of the way. But identify your audience, first and foremost. I know that I've said that several times now. Identifying the persona that you're targeting, whether it is alumni, past travelers, current travelers, that's really, really important. You can't necessarily build an effective campaign if you're just targeting it to everyone. And that's what we've seen with a lot of our clients who come to us for help. They're just blasting everyone with the same content and expecting different results, but that's not how it works. So identifying audience, number 1, every single time. Number 2, outline the desired action for that audience. So a lot of our clients don't necessarily have the same exact desired outcome for each campaign. Some of our clients say, I want somebody to contact me directly. I'll close them once I get them on the phone, but I want them to contact me. And then other clients say, I want them to book online. I don't need them to talk to me on the phone. I want them to book. So it really does depend on what that ultimate action is that you want these people within our campaign to take. That will really help drive all of the content we create, how we structure the campaign, how long the campaign is. So that's really, really important that we iron that out early on. Number 3, this is where we can get creative, and this is where the fun part starts. You can really start to put yourself in the shoes of the people receiving this content, and think about all of the pertinent pieces of information that they would need to know to take that action that you've outlined in step 2. So this is really important, and it's fun to sort of lay out all the different content pieces, whether it's blog posts or landing pages or dated content, or a video or a podcast recording, whatever you have that is relevant, we're going to use and we're going to repurpose for this effort. And a lot of times too, we're also recommending new content that we feel would be really effective and would work. So we're constantly also working with our clients on creating new content as well. So once you have all of your content laid out and you know what you're going to include, you can start to put those pieces into an orderly fashion for your email campaign. So what should come first? What should come second? You can kind of think about somebody moving their way through and receiving all of this content from you, and what would make sense to come earlier on versus later on in a sequence. Again, this is a worksheet that I'll do in person with people, but I wanted to include it in case any of you wanted to do this internally as a project for you and your team. This is just a worksheet that I use. Again, coming up with all of the things that you would want to include that you have already. And then, of course, I have a call out that not all of the call to actions need to exist yet. You could say to yourself, I wish I had a blog post about that topic because so many people ask me about that and I know that it would be something that would be highly viewed. Let's just create it. Or, I love when people say great things about our guides. Maybe we should do like a Q&A with one of our guides and post that on the website. That would be a really cool piece of content we don't have yet. Let's get that created. So it's also a really cool way to sort of brainstorm about what's next in terms of your content development. So we covered top of funnel, we covered sort of the middle of the funnel. Now let's start to talk about customers. Again, your email campaigns don't end once the person takes that desired action. Once somebody does book, we want to make sure that we're still keeping ourselves top of mind, that we're still sort of eliciting that excitement, and that our brand doesn't just sort of stop communicating with customers after we take their money. We want to make sure that that's not the sentiment and that people feel like really connected to you, especially because these trips are big purchases. And like I said, they can be life-changing in a lot of ways. So we have a new customer. We're super excited. We know a little bit about them based on their purchase. So we know what trip they're taking. We know the destination that they're going to, whether they're bringing their spouse or their family. We know that information based on their booking. So we can tailor the content we send to customers based on that. So I have a couple of examples. So this is the part where customers are the focal point. What would be sort of example communications we would want to automatically send at a certain cadence to customers leading up to their trip? How to best prepare, any cultural tips to respect the locals and the environment prior to their trip, items to remember when packing, a discount for referring a friend. All of these little tidbits are great ways to stay connected to your current customers. And here's some examples that we've done actually for Ciclismo Classico. A couple of informational emails that specifically go out to customers that have a trip coming up. Basic cycling tips, a checklist for what to pack. They have a really awesome, super comprehensive pre-departure packet. So we send that out multiple times to all of our current travelers who have a trip coming up. So that's really, really effective. People are really digging that. The engagement is really high there. So these are also really important. So I hope I just covered the entire funnel for you all, talking about top of funnel, generating those leads, nurturing those leads with tailored content based on who they are. And then ultimately, once you have them as customers, continuing to nurture them leading up to their trip, and then of course post-trip as well. Getting their feedback, maybe if you have a photo contest or you have a place where they can upload photos they took, always just staying connected to them and fostering that sense of community is really huge for travel companies, and we've seen that just be really effective, that whole strategy. But right now I'm just going to switch gears a little bit and talk about some email best practices. So a lot of our clients or prospects or people that I talk to at events, webinars, say we're already doing email marketing and we're trying to get better at it. We're not totally sure if we're ready to work with an agency, but we at least could improve what we're currently doing internally. So I like to include a couple of tips that you could perhaps start to infuse even today in your own email marketing strategy that you currently have. First and foremost, have a goal for each email. This is huge for me and my team. We're constantly thinking about this with everything that we put together for our clients. But if there's no clear goal, if there's not that one click that the recipient knows they're supposed to do, the email will get lost in the shuffle. So short, sweet, what is the purpose? And I have an example here. There's really nothing more to this email beyond the couple of words and the get started button. It's super easy to consume as somebody who might be viewing this on their phone or when they're on the go. They know that there's only one place to click. There's only one thing that the company is asking of them. And that's really important. So have a goal for each email. Ask yourself, when someone receives this, I want them to do X. I don't want them to read 20 articles. I want them to do this one thing. And that's really, really helpful. Personalize as much as possible. Of course, there's a line where personalization can become a little bit creepy, but including the person's first name, including that first name in the subject line or at least in the email itself, really does help to boost engagement. It just fosters that personal connection. And then, of course, as always with every email send, personalize that from account. Having a no reply as the email address that pops up when somebody tries to reply to the email just really breaks that trust that you have with somebody. If they're about to reply and they know that it's just going to go to some automated inbox, it's not a real human being. It just doesn't feel good. So a lot of times we'll create alias email addresses that look like it's a person, and then the company internally, when they receive replies, can manage that however they need to. But it's nice when a prospect feels like they're actually emailing a person. Be thoughtful with your subject lines. I can't stress enough how important subject lines are, and I know with how many things we're all juggling and how quick we have to kind of move through our day with all the projects we're working on, a subject line for an email can really become an afterthought, but it's so important. You can really dedicate your time to creating an awesome email with really cool content, but if no one opens the email to see it, it's a lost effort and there's no ROI there on your time. So subject lines are really, really, really important. Some tips on subject lines: keep them genuine. Don't try to get clickbaity with your subject lines. Make them as true and as genuine to the purpose and relevance of the email itself. You want to fulfill your promise to the person by making sure that subject line is tied directly to the content that's within the email. Keep it between 40 to 60 characters, and limit the use of caps, special characters. There's still some research being done, and it's kind of an active study right now in the field of whether emojis are good to use in subject lines. It's the verdict is still out on that. We're not completely sure yet. It's kind of based on industry. But I think from my perspective, adding an emoji here and there is okay, especially if the emoji is like super, super relevant to the subject line itself. Leverage preview text. So everything that I've been talking about is more or less tied to HubSpot. So we're a HubSpot agency. 80% of our clients are on HubSpot. I know that a lot of people use MailChimp or Constant Contact, and some of those systems limit you in your ability to personalize certain things, certain elements. HubSpot has the most flexibility, the most personalization sort of tools. But if you can, through whatever platform you're using, personalize your preview text when you can. It's just a great way to complement your subject line. Keep these preview text snippets between 75 to 100 characters. The first 5 to 8 words are the most crucial. And of course, write this in a way that provokes action. So if you have a discount or something that's within the email that makes it timely and important, include that in the preview text. CTAs are arguably the most important piece of the email itself. So the call to action button cannot be something where you just throw it in and have it say learn more. It needs to be a little bit more thoughtful than that for the email to be effective. So placement of the call to action, color of the button, the words that appear in the button. This Uber example here is a really awesome one. You can't miss this button. It's completely contrasting to the colors of the rest of the email. The words are exactly relevant to what the email is about. There's even a little arrow here, so it's sort of indicating to the person that when they click, they're going to go somewhere to see all the gift cards. So this is a really good example of how to do this the right way. You also want to make sure that your button appears as high up in the email as possible. Keeping your email short, sweet, concise, consumable with that button viewable to the person is really, really important. So those are my tips for just elevating your current emails that you might be sending. I do want to touch on success metrics and what we at 829 sort of use to measure success of a singular email, a series of emails, or a campaign at large. The success metrics really don't change dependent upon sort of how granular you're looking at your assets. But let's sort of dig in just a little bit here with success metrics. So what to measure and why. Email by email performance, as well as website activity attributed to email marketing. And I'm just going to kind of walk through what those are. So deliverability. Deliverability is of the list of people, let's say you have a list of 1,000 contacts that you send an email to, how many of those contacts was that email delivered to? So this is basically just the total people on the list minus any bounces is deliverability. And you really want to make sure that that deliverability rate is 97, 98, 99%. So you want your bounce rate to be as low as possible. So we, of course, look at that. That gives us a really good sense for the quality of our audience, and how many email addresses might be bad within our list, how up to date the list is. So that'll give us a really good sense for that. Open rate, of course. Open rate is a huge indicator of whether the subject line was effective. So we look at open rates as an indicator of success based on how we wrote our subject lines. So that's a huge piece we look at. Of course, click rate. Click rate is more an indicator of the effectiveness of the email itself and our call to action button, the wording that we chose for the email, the photo we chose for the email. I also like to mention here that A/B testing is something that's really, really cool and important. And if you have the ability to do so, I would, just to kind of understand how your audience engages with email marketing coming from your business. So every business is different. Every business has a different audience. You know, every audience engages with email marketing in a different way. So A/B testing certain things, button color, image that you choose, header, text. You can A/B test all of those elements to see what works best. Click-through rate. So click-through rate is a little bit different than click rate. Click-through rate is how many people clicked out of how many people opened, whereas click rate is how many people clicked out of how many people received the email. So click-through rate is a little bit of a better indicator of how effective the email was for those who opened it. So we like to look at that. And typically click-through rate, you want anywhere between 20 to 30%. That will tell you that the email was a good email and that it's one worth sending in the future. Bounce rate, of course, we want that to be as low as possible. If we see a high bounce rate, we'll absolutely flag that email. We'll flag that account really at large, and we'll dig in and take a look at the list, take a look at those who bounced, and remove any bad emails from our audience so we can kind of clean that up as we go. Unsubscribe rate, of course, we're always looking at that. When we see any red flags with unsubscribe rate, it's either an indicator of the list of people that we're sending the email to, or it's an indicator that the email just wasn't relevant, and we can tweak it as needed going forward. And then conversion rate. So how many people took the action we were beckoning them to take through the email? That's really, at the end of the day, what we're doing all of this for. So we always like to look at conversion rate, you know, how many trips were booked through this campaign after these 3 emails went out, how many people who received those 3 emails booked. So we're always looking at things like that to kind of help us garner an ROI for the effort. And then lastly, just a couple of things regarding website activity, pages per session. So we want to see, of those people who made it back to your website through an email click, how many pages did they view in their session, and then average session duration. So if people who click through an email and get to your website through that email, if they're spending more time on your website, that's usually an indicator that the email did its job. So we're always looking at that as well. And lastly, I just want to leave you with a couple of takeaways. Of course, keeping audience front of mind with really everything you're doing regarding email marketing is really, really important. If I leave you with nothing, I hope that you'll take that away. Consult with a guide or a marketer to get started. Don't be afraid to ask for help. This is not an easy strategy. This is not an easy program. Email marketing is really, really hard. It takes time to really understand how your audience works and what resonates with them and what drives somebody to book. And email marketing, when done in the right way, can give you so much information about your buyers. It can really open up a whole new world for you, just in terms of the insights you're able to gather. Format your emails for best possible engagement, of course. And then email marketing is the #1 marketing channel. So, I would, of course, recommend really dedicating some resources and some time to looking at your current strategy, looking at your current emails. Is it working? Is it just something that every week you send your weekly e-blast and you're trying to think of things to put in it? Like, if that's not working, that's outdated. So we really want to make sure that our clients and that anyone that we have exposure to has that feeling of empowerment and kind of takes a look at their current strategy and says, is this really working? Like, how could this be better? What can I do to improve this? I've been sending these weekly e-blasts for a year and I have never really understood if this works, but it's just become part of my habit. We hear that all the time. So it's a really good opportunity to kind of just level set and see how you could improve that effort. And then lastly, a couple of stats, but again, you'll have this, so you can read these on your own time. So I know we only have a couple of minutes left. I think we have 10, 12 minutes left, so I want to leave time for Q&A.
Hey, Caitlin, thank you so much. We do have a few questions. We're going to start with Dean's question, and he is wondering how to get your reservation system connected with your email marketing platform so that somebody who's along the prospects funnel then gets turned into an upcoming customer when that happens.
Yeah, that's a good question. So a lot of times it really is dependent upon whether the marketing automation platform that you're using has an API that will connect with your reservation system. If not, what we've done in our case, if the reservation system and the marketing platform have to be separate because there isn't a native integration, which is not uncommon, what we'll do is we'll kind of create like a pretty robust training / program for our clients to say, okay, here's all the information that's in your reservation system, and here's all the information in your marketing platform. These two systems don't talk to each other, so here's how we're going to sort of manually create that communication flow. And it's been working out really well, actually, for a lot of our clients. It actually gives them more of like a hands-on look at their data, because they are having to kind of go into 2 different platforms and look at things. But again, that's sort of a deeper conversation into if the 2 platforms don't connect. Sometimes they do, and that's awesome. It really does depend on what you're using on either side, what reservation platform and what marketing platform.
Cool, thanks. Another question, this one's from Anna. She has struggled with getting MailChimp to correctly integrate with the forms that she has on her website. Some of the forms seem to be working fine, some aren't. Do you have any advice for what may be going on?
Yeah, what we've done in the past with MailChimp, because their forms aren't the greatest, we use Gravity forms on a lot of our clients' websites. Gravity forms and MailChimp have a native integration. So if you switch all of your forms to Gravity forms, you can integrate that with MailChimp and it'll work seamlessly, and you can add as many forms as you want. So that's something that we've kind of decided is the best case scenario for our MailChimp clients.
Thank you so much, Caitlin. Thank you, everyone, for joining. This has been really informative. And if anyone has follow-up questions that they want me to send to Caitlin, I can always be the middleman for you and get those answered. Otherwise, you'll be getting an email tomorrow afternoon that has the webinar recording on that for you. Have a good afternoon, everyone.